Hello, troopers. This is Steve from the Drumline. And for those of you who downloaded the Pyware or have experience using the Pyware, I'm just going to share this video. I've got quite a few years experience using it, so it's the one I'm using. I expect that the majority of the Corps will use the UDB app. But if you have this app or would like to use it, this is for you. So the first thing I want to talk about is importing files. So on the right side, we've got these 5 controls. The top one that looks like a basket is for opening or importing drills. So when you get this window, the import in the blue on the top right, you would click this, then click on QR code, and then shoot a picture of that code that's on the main thread of our Facebook page. I've got our stuff in here, and so I'm going to open up, let's do the 4th movement. So the first thing I want to do, this is in director view, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn it around so that it's from the perspective of the performers. So I've got 2 fingers on the screen, and I'm just spinning that field all the way around. And the next thing I want to do is find myself. So I'm going to go down to this 3rd control on the right panel that looks like a bullet list, and that's the cast list, as they call it. You'll find yourself in here. It's the cast list is shown in numerical order, a digital numerical. So it's 1, then 1, 0, then 1, 1, 1, 2, like that. And my position, I just touched the wrong one. My position is S11, snare 11. And so now it's got my information. These are set-by-set instructions that I have. And it's also now highlighted my position on the field, which is kind of hard to see, but my snare 11 position has a yellow highlight circle around it. To finish up with this window, it gives you all of the details of your coordinate, plus if you touch on production, then it's telling you the measures and number of counts in the music, which is going to be handy for percussion and brass. All right, so to make that window go away, we'll touch that bullet list on the right menu again, and then it just disappears. When that happened, also it deselected my cast member. So what I'm going to do here, since I know where I am, I'm S11 in the snare line, I'm just going to touch on mine, and now it's going to stay highlighted while I'm looking at drills. So another thing you can see is that all of the characters on the field have their identifying labels on top of them. And this is a mode that's kind of in 3D, so it gives some height to each of the characters. I'm going to go past the bullet list on the right side and touch on this 4th icon down, and that's just for making notes for yourself. If there's something that you need to remind yourself of while you're marching a particular set, you can write it here and then save it, and then it will show up for you when you get to that set in the music. I don't use that, but some of you might have a reason to use it. Finally, down at the bottom, this arrow that looks like a less than sign, touch on that, and those are all of the settings that you can change. I like to use the contrast setting. If you look at the very top, the surface right now, they've created a surface that has a texture, it looks like. I prefer the contrast setting, which changes everything to black and white with individual steps marked in the grid. The flat setting is much like the contrast setting, but it's just less with texture and more with just static color like that. So anyway, for the time being, I'm going to go to the contrast. The other thing I've learned from experience is when you're outside and you've got bright sunlight, that the flat and the surface settings are a little bit more difficult to see, the small print and things like that, and so you can see better in the sunlight if you put it on contrast. And this gives us just a regular 2D look at things. For me, if we look at these different, one thing I can show you here, the next bar down on that, if you click on solo, it makes everybody else on the field disappear, and only your one position is there. And so then if we look at some movement, and that's not it. If I go from set 41 to 42, I have a move, and I can see myself moving if I just click the play button, minus everyone else. I rarely use that setting because I like to see what other traffic is happening in my field of vision so that I can anticipate that when we meet in Indy. I turned on the audible click. If that's not on, then the same thing happens, but it's just a glide movement. You don't really have counts for your reference, and so I keep the audible click on. If you click step animation, then it's going to advance it with the click. That might come in handy for you if you're a person who subdivides longer sets. Say we have a 32 count move and you want to see where you're supposed to be halfway through the move on 16. You can use that step animation to locate the halfway point for a move or anything else you want. So I think the rest of the controls on this are pretty self-explanatory, and so I'm going to leave it at that because those are mainly the things that I use. So if we hide that, something I just did but I didn't say much about, on the ruler down at the bottom, if you touch on a number, those are set numbers, and so this is 42, then 43, 44. And when you do the animation, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to add the rest of the core back, ensemble. When you do this individual set, it will give you that red path of travel for your individual person. That disappears when you're running the whole song, but I find that to be pretty handy, especially when I'm marching a diagonal somewhere. Staying with these controls down at the bottom, you've got the play button, and then to the left of that, it will reverse or advance where there's the double arrow. That's one step at a time. And then the arrow on the far left will take it all the way to the beginning. Oops. It takes it to the previous set, back to the previous set. To the circle over here, if you wanted to see a certain set over and over again in a loop, that's what that does. I don't know if that's of use to anyone. And then over here on the right side, the straight line with arrows on both ends, when you click play, that automatically takes you back to the beginning of the file, and it will run the file from beginning to end without stopping, and you don't have the individual path of travel on everything there. Oh, it looks like it does. So we'll turn that off. A couple other things I like to do. This one is already set up from the performer's view. I like to see myself from a different perspective on the field, so we can lay the field down more flat. If you place two fingers side by side and then just slide them forward, it's going to set the field down more flat like that. And then what you're seeing is a little bit more true to life, what you're going to see on the field. So just a little bit of animation with that going on. I find this angle to be very helpful when there's traffic. Again, I pay attention to pass-throughs and things like that, and I think having this down on the field level perspective helps with that. And then it also, it's pretty cool to see that when you add the third dimension to it. If you go to the flat surface and then we watch the drill happening here, it adds the height to each character, and so you're able to imagine what that's going to look like and feel like when we're on the field in Indy. I think that's most of what I use on this. To switch files, you just open that basket back up and go to a different file, click load, and then it's going to give you back the director's point of view from the bird's eye. And so just spin that around, select the contrast you like, and if you want to lay that field down, and then zoom in to get the information that you need. Select your performer. If anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Otherwise, good luck prepping your drill for us to march when we get there, and it's going to be fun to meet you all. See you in Indy.